Or actually, if you don't mind recording, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you for
Oldest
recording.
child, you said. You don't usually talk about your life.
Oops,
Continue on.
yes, thanks. And I remember a professor struggling at one point and calling a professor and not receiving the call back. And when we finally were able to talk a few months later, telling him what was going on and him saying, I'm sorry, I should have called you sooner. You're always okay. And so I wasn't worried. And I think that's kind of a tract that has been a characteristic of mine throughout my life. Um, I am okay, but I work on reaching out a little bit more. Um, I was born in, or I was raised in New York, and so a very pivotal moment for me was 9/11. And at that point, I was in fifth grade, and I didn't know what was going on at the time. I just knew that something was wrong. And I remember leaving my classroom, and my mother was collecting me and my brother from school. And as I was leaving, my teacher said something to me, any last words? And I had had a bet that day with one of my friends who was going to go home early because a lot of people were. And I just remember saying to him, tell Caitlin that I won. And I don't know why it still sticks with me, but I do know why. Like, my life really changed at that moment. There was a sense of um, vulnerability that I hadn't felt before. And I think that among many things shaped my course and my striving to be in public service and caring for others and thinking about those moments of need. And so for most of my career, I spent it around not only being in government and communicating and trying to connect dots for people, but also caring for others. And then that's an interweaving thread from my personal and professional. One of the earliest times that I was in Washington, D.C. working, I was moved there very last minute, and I didn't have a home to go to yet. I didn't have time to look for an apartment. And I was really fortunate because an aunt, a great aunt, found out I was coming and said, "Hey, why don't you move in with us? We have 4 empty bedrooms." And so I did. And the beautifulness about that was it was an aunt I didn't know before. And I was a bit scared to move in with strangers and what think of my idiosyncrasies and me of theirs. But I realized that she had lost connection with a grandmother that I was very close to about the time that I was born. And she was able to share all these beautiful memories from prior to my recollection. And I was able to share memories in a life from a time she wasn't as interwoven into them. And from that, it kind of paralleled my journey professionally of supporting people, but personally of building connections. And I developed this whole new family. And so that was a very formative experience. And even after we no longer lived together, we would still spend weekends. I would always go over to her home Saturday morning and we'd have tea and talk. She's aging right now, and we're going through that process of what comes next and how to ensure she has agency and voice through all these big decisions coming up. And so I think right now the caring and the connectivity in my life is taking a bit of a new form in as people's life stages change and as I face and part of some of these elder care decisions. So I think I have like 5 seconds to spare, but that I think is where I'll leave us with today.
All right. And questions that you have, Steph?